In the next few decades, 73 million baby boomers will pass on their $84 trillion of assets in what's called the Great Wealth Transfer. Today, let's go into what will happen and perhaps more importantly, how you can best prepare yourself. And the very first question is, how did baby boomers even accumulate so much wealth? In 2024, baby boomers own $78.5 trillion in assets, which is 51.6% of total wealth in the United States. This is compared to 9.4% owned by millennials and 25.8% owned by Gen X. And it's pretty normal that older generations have more wealth than younger generations. They've been in the workforce longer and have had more time to compound wealth. But a study shows that it's more difficult than ever for millennials to build and maintain wealth than it was for their parents at the same age. In their 30s, the average baby boomer had a wealth of $140,346, 25% more than the wealth of millennials around the same age. And in the same aspect, boomers held 20% of their wealth in their 30s, while millennials hold about 3.5% at the same age. So again, the question is how? A lot of this can be contributed to luck and real estate. First, real estate prior to the 1980s, housing wasn't as it is now with prices continuously soaring. Instead, it was just a purchase for raising a family, having a backyard barbecue, and it was just a place to live and not an investment. And housing prices never grew faster than wage growth or stock market returns. Simply, it was just a way to store money. But in the 1980s, as mortgage rates began to drop, the perception of the housing market changed. It was easier for people to receive cheaper loans and buy their homes in American dream. And at this time, baby boomers were around 20 or 30 years old, which was the perfect time to buy a house. And traditionally, the rule of thumb is that there should be a 3-to-1 ratio between home price and income. In the 1980s, the median home price was $64,600, while the median household income was $21,020. It was a perfect 3-to-1 home to price ratio. And fast forward to today, that nice 3-to-1 ratio is far from reality. Today, the median house price is $412,300, while the median household income is at a snail's pace and estimated to be at $78,171, which gives us a 5.25 to 1 ratio. And again, this is due to a shift in how people viewed real estate. It was no longer just somewhere to live or keep your money. It became something to invest and watch your money grow. And because of this, the disconnect between wages and home prices widened much more so in the 1980s. And since the 1980s, housing affordability has fallen to its lowest levels. Baby boomers who purchased a house during that time have been able to profit and bring in significant gains that continue to grow even today. And next is the stock market. Before your Robinhood app or even the Wolf of Wall Street, the stock market prior to the 1970s was a shady club that only a few were able to get into or even access. And most people thought it was a scam until 1976 when John Bogle created the first index fund, which made it easier, more accessible, and cheaper for people to invest their hard-earned money into the stock market. And in parallel, technology saw rapid advancement as the first personal computer in the 70s and the internet in the 80s brought the stock market even closer to the average person. You no longer needed a fancy degree from an Ivy League or a finance license to invest in the stock market. And during this time, baby boomers thrived. Not only was technology in the perfect place, but baby boomers were at the optimal age and in the peaks of their careers and therefore potential earnings. In 1982, the Dow would gain 42.4%, and even though the bull market would end in 1987, over the 20 years following, the Dow gained more than 1,000% overall, or 11.6% per year. And baby boomers went through their own struggles and worked hard in their own right. But a lot of it too is simply being in the right place at the right time. And similarly how Buffett very much contributed a lot of his success to not only his research, but also being born and raised at the right place at the right time. In the United States, and the son of a congressman and businessman. Luck and timing. So what does this mean for the Great Wealth Transfer? Well, before we go on, if you're enjoying this video and finding it useful, please make sure to like and subscribe. It'll help this channel a lot. Thank you very much for watching. So if millennials and Gen Z are going to inherit wealth, why does this even matter? Although true, baby boomers are holding on to over half of the nation's wealth, but they account for 20% of the population, and these large-sounding averages are heavily distorted at the top. The millennials who will inherit that wealth are actually doing quite well already, and therefore, when the Great Wealth Transfer does happen, it won't really affect the majority of people. Some boomers might leave behind a house, a boat, and a few $1,000s, but others will leave behind a fortune in various assets. The majority of wealth will be transferred among the wealthiest 10%. The top 10% wealthiest control as much as the bottom 90% of the country as a whole. The harsh reality is that the typical baby boomer isn't in a position to leave any money at all. Although the average net worth of boomers is somewhere around $1.2 million, the actual median net worth is $206,700, which isn't much at all considering the cost of living, let alone a decade from now. So it's likely that the issue of wealth inequality will continue. According to data from the Federal Reserve, only 1 of about 4 kids will receive any inheritance at all. And this is all dependent on if boomers don't run out of money first. Baby boomers are becoming homeless at a rate not seen since the Great Depression. Many baby boomers across the country are coming to terms with the harsh reality that working your entire life is no longer enough to guarantee you'll receive a roof over your head. And this is largely due to a series of recessions, high housing costs, and a shortage of affordable housing. Cost of living is too expensive, healthcare costs are increasing, and Social Security is running dry. In the early 1990s, 11% of homeless were 50 and older. In 2003, 37%, and today over half. In addition to homelessness and everything being more expensive, people are simply living longer, meaning boomers will spend more on their longer twilight years and might not have much if anything to pass down. So all of this is pretty doom and gloom, and if you're not already in a position of wealth, the great wealth transfer doesn't benefit you. It doesn't seem so great, but there's some hope. So what can you do? First of all, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. That's 66.2% of Americans, 73.2% of millennials, and 65.5% of Gen Z. And the biggest barrier to a house, which again is one of the greatest investments you can make in your lifetime, is the high cost of living and paying rent. And the most effective budgeting guidelines to follow is the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your take-home pay goes to your essentials, paying for your rent, groceries, and the electricity bill. 30% goes to your wants, your trip to Cancun, your new video games, and your Netflix subscription. And 20% goes to your savings. The idea here is to ensure that you have enough money to save and ultimately buy yourself a home. So if you had a take-home salary of $75,000, you could afford to put $37,500 towards your rent, or about $3,125 a month. But remember that this also needs to include food and utilities. So the less expenses you have, the more flexibility you can have and put more towards rent. And next is your emergency funds and investing. So make sure to establish a fund that is 3 to 6 months of expenses for financial emergencies. And once you're able to fill up your emergency fund, you'll want to be investing money in a certain account. And even though the stock market probably won't have the exponential gains it did when boomers began investing, you're still better off investing your money and compounding it in order to be steps ahead of inflation. So make sure to open up a Roth IRA where you contribute post-tax money, meaning that you pay tax on your income first before contributing to your Roth IRA. And the main benefit here is that the Roth IRA is post-tax, so you don't have to pay any taxes for any growth in your investments and can withdraw at any time. Say you started investing at a ripe age of 25, and assuming a modest 7% average return a year, if you contributed just $100 a week or $400 a month, you would be a millionaire in 38 years. And as you progress through your career, you're able to contribute more and compound more. So that $1 million by 65 should be a bare minimum. And remember, you can withdraw tax-free. Finally, in order to increase your income, job hopping will allow for a quick way to increase your salary faster, advance your career, and help you develop new skills. In general, those who change jobs tend to earn more than those who stay at the same job. In 2024, the median year-over-year pay increase for people who switched jobs was 10%, compared to just 5.1% for those who stayed at the same job. But do remember that you need a balance between seeking better compensation and creating a stable career trajectory. And today, finding a job is even more difficult than ever. So check out the next video to see why and what you can do about it.